The
Right.
purpose of this group really is to try to make the housing crisis visible and get people more aligned on solutions so that when we get people in office and they do work on our behalf, they've got like a crowd of people that are behind them and they've got the support that they need, because we know that, we need people at every level to be jumping in and doing what they can, because this is complex and it's also kind of hollowing out our community from the inside out right now as far as the housing crisis.
Right.
Okay, great. Hi, nice to see you. My name is Ben Nelson. I am a Winthrop Town Council member for 6 years now. And I kind of led the charge coming out of this group for Winthrop to declare a state of emergency. And it didn't really have any teeth behind it, but it just put the issue at the forefront to show people that it's really a struggle for our businesses in particular, to find employees, all that comes with not having enough housing and affordable housing. And so after that got, news going on in Seattle Times and Spokesman Review, different things started happening. And now we're working on a housing plan in conjunction with TWISP, that'll give us some concrete steps that we can take going forward. But I think it's important to have the county as a partner going forward, not necessarily in land use decisions, but in terms of backing us when we make policies that might affect some of the things that the county will do, and honestly, financial support from the county going forward too, because I think everybody kind of recognizes that in the Metro, the greatest opportunity is to put more housing in the incorporated cities, just with the land use things going on in the county.
Right.
So how do you think you would describe the role the county could play in our housing crisis?
Probably more in a support role than actually developing housing or any of that. I think that personally, I feel that's a private sector thing to have happen. Typically, private does things better than the bureaucracy of a government. But on the other side of that, there are opportunities for communities and the county itself to get funding through the state, whether that be, I think it's, if I remember right, it's SHB 1406, which allows cities and the county to utilize state excise tax to fund affordable housing or low income housing. I think we would have, as a county, access to a lot more grants possibly than the smaller communities, which not being there yet, but I would imagine that the county would be willing to administer or help you guys get grants to help fund these issues. It's an issue countywide. I think you're hit more with the high costs, but our community is kind of hit with the same thing because we have so much lakefront on Lake Osuyas that it's elevated the property values drastically in the entire community. So I think we're kind of all in the same boat. Yours is just sinking faster than ours.
So I'll ask a quick follow-up if I can,
Sure.
Because we opted into using excise, the 1% of the excise tax available. The town of Winthrop gets about $1,500 a year out of that. So the impact is tiny, right? It's not going to do anything. So, we're thinking, oh, maybe in 10 years we can help. And then utility development is kind of our thing, right? And the county doesn't really manage a whole ton of utility, sewer and water development, right? And so, do you see the role the county helping possibly? Because when developers, submit a long plat or a short plat for some land, they are responsible for developing the utilities, and the cost of that basically of 10, it's not worth it. And so that, I think that's, and you can chime in here, but the possibility there to offset some of that cost is kind of what I would like the county to partner with, and you can kind of chime in here too.
Yeah, I don't really know what the county's budget looks like as far as being able to help on that end. I know in Orville, we used at that point it was 0.08 funds to do the east side sewer project. We're actually looking at a potential of expanding it on the west side of the lake, and that's actually would help another project there, but we are not really taking the lead on that because that's in the county. We are trying to help the developer along through the potential of getting DOE grants. We just did a water project on the east side that DOE paid connection fees, everything, every dime was paid for, which our engineer said they had never seen happen. So I think if you can do the project in such a way that it really shows the need and the environmental potentially benefit. I mean, that was our sewer project has really been a godsend to most developers because you're not on the lakefront stuff. Yeah, I think it's 150 feet. Your house has to be back, and then all the sewer has to be back behind that. This with the project we have now, that's not an issue. They just have to connect to our sewer system. So I know anything that's close to water, DOE is really helpful as far as trying to get funding and stuff. So, and I think with that.
Great, thank you. I'll toss it to Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Milstead. I've lived in the Valley since 2014. My husband's a small business owner, and I've been a lot of things, most recently controller up at Sun Mountain Lodge, and I'm moving to be deputy director at a local nonprofit called Methow Valley Citizens Council. So I'm really passionate about how this valley grows and how we all protect what we hold dear. I'll go ahead and go into the question. We don't need one solution to the housing crisis. We need dozens. Most importantly, the solutions have to serve working people, not big developers or those who already have more than what they need. Would you support state and local legislation that enables a real estate transfer tax aimed at affordable housing?
Possibly. I would have to see how that exactly works. I kind of tried to research it this afternoon and did not have a lot of success on the numbers on how the transfer would actually fit in. So, I mean, anything that's viable for the community and the county and doesn't put an excess burden on the individuals, I think, yeah, I would definitely be in support of.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, John.
Alana.
So this one is pretty hot in the Methow Valley. Lots of people out here think the creation of a junior tax district could help our towns get much needed resources for affordable housing. What do you think about the idea of a junior tax district being created, and would you support the Methow Valley in the idea?
Typically, yeah. Most taxing districts are put together with requiring a vote of the people. I mean, I think you can do it either way if you can get a majority of landowners or doing it through a vote, depending on what kind of a district you're setting up. But yeah, anything that the majority of the population agrees upon, I have no problem with that. I would definitely support that. So, yeah, we've done it on Lake Osuias as far as milfoil control. They've set up a taxing district for that and a couple other items. So I think all in all, they work quite well. Typically not everybody's happy, but the majority of them are, and it does work. So
Thanks. It's really, really helpful to hear too that Orville has done that. I've never heard that. It's really interesting.
oh yeah, actually they just did that in the last year, and they just set up another one for, I think it was animal control on the west side of the lake because they had some issues there. So
cool. All right, Ben, you're up. You're muted.
There we go. Yeah. vacation homes, vacation homes and Airbnbs in our valley are, it's no surprise that it's an issue. So do you feel that leveraging fees or taxes on vacation homes is part of the solution? And it's difficult because state laws kind of prohibit, singling out property owners based on how they operate. But it's something that we kick around a lot because it affects our property values, right? They go up too high when these things happen, and it affects our sense of community too. I mean, I have 19 homes in my little neighborhood, and 5 of them are second homes. So we only see these folks 2 or 3 times a year, and we're right in Winthrop, and it hurts. It doesn't create a fabric of community that's very sustainable in our little neighborhood here. So do you think using these businesses, right? They're operating as businesses as a part of the solution to fund affordable housing?
Yeah, I think if you could figure out a legal way to make that happen. I know I was just running this through my head. Personally, any home that isn't used at least 6 months out of or half the year, I think should be pretty much obligated to pay some fees for the maintenance of everybody else and to benefit the entire community. I know Chelan County, a friend of ours has a rental down there, and they are limiting their stock to 6% of the entire homes can be used as a rental. So it's going to be a challenge for them to go through that, and somehow they're using the building inspectors and stuff to go through and catalog and inspect to make sure they fit the standards. So I don't know how that would work. I know our inspectors are kind of short-staffed at this point anyway, and that's typically a monetary question on how to fund those positions. But if we can figure out a way to fund them, I think we can really work to improve that issue and make sure the rentals that are there are quality rentals. So I don't know if that completely answered your question, but
All done then?
Yeah.
Okay. So jobs that provide a real living wage have been diminishing for decades in Okanogan County, not just the Met Howe Valley. It's a huge factor in this housing crisis. How would you as a leader address the need for more jobs that pay a good living wage countywide and in the Met Howe Valley?
well, unfortunately, I think the housing and attracting industry kind of go hand in hand. If you can't house the people, the labor force that you need for your business, it's pretty hard to attract a business. My understanding is OMAC just lost one, and that was the excuse they used, was the lack of excuse me, of housing in the area. So I know we've had a couple businesses up here that have looked, and that's been an issue, and the fact that a lot of times they don't figure that we have an educatable workforce that is willing to work. So
that conversation happens here all the time too.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, as a commissioner, if I get in that position, I would definitely advocate to try to attract industry, make the area as attractive as you can, whether that's through incentives, tax incentives. I mean, the state does that at certain levels. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of them don't really have to be lobbied on a lot to try to make those things happen over here.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you.
Okay. The last question on here, unless someone has another one in the end, which I maybe do have one more that's short and sweet. One of our members last week called the county to talk about enforcing nightly rentals within the county's jurisdiction, because they had someone in their own community who had an illegal nightly rental. And they were told that the county is not enforcing violations because they don't have enough staff or capacity. The county person said that they've actually stopped even writing letters telling people that they should cease and desist from operating a nightly rental. So it's kind of a couple part question here, but how important do you think it is for the county to address those nightly rentals? And secondly, what do you think is the story behind that lack of capacity at the county level? And is there anything you think voters could do or people could do to better support the county? Because we know everybody there works hard.
Alana, could I just hang on to that?
Sure.
So this is also happens with other violations with things like homes that are not built properly to deal with your complaints. It is stunning to me.
Yeah, I mean, the problem I have with ignoring a problem like that, if you know that this is going on and you have regulations against it, you are pretty much as a county assuming responsibility for any harm that may happen because of that. Whether that be building code violations, if you have a unsafe rental, any of that stuff. I mean, if you are conscious of it happening and ignore it, in my opinion, and probably I would have to talk to legal to make sure I'm right, but you are assuming responsibility and liability for that. So that is a definite no-no in my opinion. I mean, beyond that, like I said earlier, typically money is kind of the hang up in being able to hire enough people. I haven't really looked at that section of the budget as far as I've kind of looked at planning and some of the others, but as far as the building inspecting department and some of that, I really haven't checked that out, which I guess I should. If their budget isn't big enough to hire the people they need, that's a budgetary item, and that needs to be looked at annually during budget time to make sure they have all the capacity that they need. So that's definitely something I would look at. I know I've had a lot of complaints about planning and development kind of for the same reason, that it drags because they're understaffed. And I mean, I think every department in the county is kind of looking at that at some level. The sheriff's department through the jail and sheriffs themselves, deputies they're shorthanded on every level. So the money is the key, and I don't know whether the citizens of the county would be willing to add on to their tax burden to correct that. But most of the time, if you have wants, you have to pay for them somehow. So
You think applying a higher fee for legal nightly rentals would be part of that solution? I mean, it's fairly cheap on average to have a legal nightly rental in the county. And you would think that those guys would want to protect their status by having a slightly higher fee if it gets rid of illegal nightly rentals.
right, I guess that's something a person would have to approach them and see what they're willing to do, because like you said, if you can knock a few people out, it would increase traffic to the legal ones and make sure that everybody has a quality place to stay. So
I know that when we
Thank
talked
you,
about
John. Sorry, I got to run to my council meeting, but I appreciate the conversation.
all right, say hello to Sally.
I will.
Yep.
Yes. Take
All
care.
right, thank you.
when we talked about this as a group, John, people brought up stories of how in Hawaii, if you have an illegal nightly rental, the fee is $50,000 or something, or 40,000. I mean, it was so high that people were really hesitant to do it. So what I see in the Metro Valley is there's a very high appetite for kind of cracking down on people who are exploiting the housing crisis. I bet we could fund that position really quick, It would be very exciting, I think, for all of us to see county commissioners step up to the plate in this particular fight and choose a side. Like, choose a side of working people and know that that's what helps businesses, that's what helps local communities. So just for what it's worth, I thought that was an interesting little piece.
Oh yeah, and I think if you can, as a group, if the rental people would get organized and push the issue, it would make the commissioners have no choice. So sometimes they need a little shove.
Yeah. Well, John, I have one kind of wrap up question, unless Nancy has another one that's burning, and I know we want to get off by 7. Cool. I know you've spent a lot of time now in forums and conversations with, kind of sitting side by side with Lloyd Caton. And
Mhm.
I know for a lot of folks out here, they still haven't learned enough about both of you to understand the difference and really get a sense for where they should put their vote. After sitting next to Lloyd in so many of these conversations, how would you describe the difference between you and him and why you think voters like us, knowing what we want, should vote for you?
I think that probably the biggest difference is just the amount of experience in dealing with people in municipalities, dealing with government, community involvement. I mean, we've all done our things, but I mean, I've been involved in municipal government for the last 21 years, been on the fire department for 15 years, did numerous different things when my kids were going to school. I mean, I coached AAU in every sport, actually coached hockey one year in Canada, which was an experience if you've ever skated, but that's one of those things. Yeah, like I said, community involvement is, I am key on that. And once I start something, I will stick it out no matter how painful it becomes.
Thanks, John. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know Lloyd personally well enough to know what the differences are, except the experience. I mean, going through the forums, he has one highlight as far as a governmental thing, and that he's kind of just been beating that to death, in my opinion. So yeah, and I've, like I said, I've done a lot of things. I'm on 4 different county boards right now. I mean, Trango, OCOG, emergency communications. I'm also on the emergency management board. So there's a small child behind you.
Do you hear this? Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I was keeping him at bay as long as I could. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Good
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.